more tax deductible. He's a big advocate of homeschooling and making it more affordable for anybody to homeschool, private schools competing with the government schools and so forth. But we have dug ourselves into this hole over the past 100 years, and no one is going to fix the problem for your children, your grandchildren, probably. Although there are a lot of, the whole homeschooling thing has been just a tremendous thing to see. I get invited to talk all the time at organizations of homeschool parents, and it's just marvelous. Talking to 13-year-olds who seem smarter than PhD students right now, for example. And so anything that can be done to make it easier for parents to escape the government school monopoly is good. And no one has been a more consistent proponent of free markets in education than Ron Paul. No one has been a more consistent critic of socialism than Ron Paul, and an educated critic of socialism. Not only the economic part, but the civil liberties part in terms of the condemnations of socialism. And so in terms of the whole discussion of Cuba and socialism, Ron Paul knows what he's talking about because he's very well schooled in the so-called Austrian School of Economics. For those of you who don't know anything about it, there was an economist named Ludwig von Mises from Austria who predicted in a book in 1920 that socialism could never work. And he was considered to be the chief nemesis of the socialists of the world intellectually for all those years. And when socialism finally collapsed everywhere but North Korea and Cuba, one of the big socialists in America, Robert Halbrunner, socialist intellectual, wrote an article in the New Yorker magazine, and the title was "Mises Was Right." And this is Ron Paul's intellectual inspiration, is Ludwig von Mises. And so in terms of this whole issue of Cuba and what to do about Cuba, no one understands what a disaster socialism is and always will be more than Ron Paul. And he would have the biggest chance to help us do something about that. And of course, I used to describe to students of mine, I would describe a system, and I would call it the grocery industry. I'd say, what if we organize the grocery industry in this way? And I would give them several aspects of the grocery industry and ask them, what do you think would happen? And everybody would say, well, that's a disaster. And I would assign everyone to a single grocery store. You had to buy groceries from that one store. All teachers would be, all grocery employees would be given tenure. Everyone would be paid the same, whether you're the butcher or the checkout clerk. And it takes about 10 seconds for the students to understand that, well, that's a crazy system, and it's exactly how the public schools are operating. I even had one student from Taiwan who said, that's communism, because he lived next to communism in his young life, and he understood what he was talking about, and he was right. And so if anyone is going to do anything to fight socialism, it will be Ron Paul. Whereas Romney, he introduced socialized health care to Massachusetts. Can't really trust him. Newt Gingrich is really a progressive. He's not really a limited government conservative. He's a friend of mine who's Ron Paul's legislative director tells me that every Monday morning meeting with all the GOP staffers, whenever Newt shows up, he'll mention about 100 ideas, and every couple of months, one of them will kind of make sense. And that's how the Washington staffers think of Gingrich. And so he's not in the same ballpark as Ron Paul in terms of intellectually understanding the problem of public schools and all.
Okay, we have a final question here.
Yeah, my name is Marcus Rifkin. Stand up, Rich. My name is Marcus Rifkin. I'm a military veteran. And I got a master's in international relations. I just want to make a quick point and then ask you a question. In terms of Iran being irrational, they are rational. They always have the capability to mess with us from the Strait of Hormuz. So I'm not worried about it because that shows a little rationality. In terms of Cuba, U.S. is the biggest trader with Cuba, regardless of sanctions. Through the black market or whatnot, or circumventing the whole sanction. So just a paper sanction embargo. That's what it is. And in terms of Israel, you made a question. We give to the enemies of Israel 7 to 8 times to the enemies of Israel. If we do away with foreign aid, it's a net positive for Israel. We're just only propping up the enemies of Israel. Okay? Now, in terms about my question is force projection. People are worried that when under Paul presidency, he's worried about us retrenching back within our borders. the idea is like, well, what about China and Russia filling in that void? Is there a way to kind of alleviate that worry?
No. People don't worry about that because they've been propagandized about it so much, with war propaganda. I think I'd like to comment on the Strait of Hormuz point there. It's on the news lately that Iranians are threatening to shut off the Strait of Hormuz. And what would that do? That would prohibit them from selling us their oil. That's a smart move, isn't it? I mean, it's insane that they would think of doing that. Why would they do that? They sell the oil. Why would they keep themselves from selling their oil? They would bankrupt themselves. They wouldn't be able to produce a shotgun, let alone a nuclear bomb, if they were to do that. And so that's just more war propaganda. Like, why should we worry about the fact that Chinese businessmen want to sell us stuff? Now that they've abandoned socialism, for the most part, in China, we're supposed to be all hysterical and frightened that Chinese businessmen want to sell us good stuff cheap. I'm not worried about it. If I was the CEO of some corporation who competed with Chinese businesses, yeah, I'd be worried about it. And I might even go to Washington and try to get the government to strong arm with our military the Chinese to keep them out of my market. I might do that. That's what's going on. That's what has always gone on. And so, but I wouldn't have any worry about it normally. Thanks, we're out of time. Marcus,
okay, yeah, hey, just before I hand it over, a quick short version. So then Ron Paul opposes the Cuban embargo? Ron Paul stands in opposition to the Cuban embargo?
Yeah, he has said it's a figurative thing. It has no teeth, and of course it doesn't because Castro is still there. He's a vegetable, but he's still there. They still have communism. It's still an awful place, despite the embargo. I mean, the embargo, if it makes you feel good to think we have something called the embargo there, nothing wrong with that. But I think it's essentially meaningless in terms of having an economic impact in a negative way on Cuba.
Folks, a big hand for our guests tonight. Thomas DiLorenzo. Folks, at this point, my final words would be we're going to be having other meetings throughout the month, as it is primary month, and we are going to be bringing either surrogates or the candidates themselves from other campaigns. As you know, it's an important thing for us to be able to bring as many candidates and candidate surrogates to the forefront so you can ask the pertinent questions that you need to make your decision. That's our advocating position, and we're sticking to it. And we're sticking to it. Alrighty, so then, folks, mingle amongst yourselves. There's some books back here that Thomas has. If you want to purchase one, then you'll be glad to put his John Hancock on one of them. Mingle amongst yourselves. Nothing wrong with good, conscientious, spirited debate. That's what we're all about. And see you very soon. Keep in tune to your emails because bulletins will be coming up. Thank you very much for coming.